Have you ever felt that that little voice inside telling you something's wrong, even if, everyone says it's perfectly legal?
Yeah, or the flip side, right? Feeling something is fundamentally right, even when it's technically against the rules.
Exactly. Well, what if that inner compass, your own conscience, is actually the ultimate authority? What if you are, in fact, already above any law written by someone else?
Hmm, that's a pretty big thought to start with.
It is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really jumping into Larken Rose's quite challenging article. You are above the law, and you should be.
Yeah, it's definitely provocative.
Our mission today is to unpack that incredibly bold claim. We want to look at his reasoning, explore the implications for how we think about morality, law, personal responsibility.
And he starts off asking something unusual, doesn't he?
He does. He asks readers ask you listening to pay more attention to your own gut feelings about what he's saying. He even uses the extreme example of approving of murder.
Which sounds shocking, but his point isn't about murder itself.
Right, not at all. It's to show how we have these instinctive moral reactions before we even consider legal codes. It's a sort of immediate call to look inward, sets the tone.
Definitely gets your attention.
So, okay, the heart of it. Rose makes this really striking assertion. He considers himself above the law, feels zero moral obligation to obey government laws.
That's the core, yeah. It sounds radical.
It does in a world built on legal systems.
Wow. But the key thing, the distinction he makes, is why he might comply. He says he often does follow laws, but, and this is crucial, it's purely out of fear of punishment.
Ah, okay.
Not because he thinks the laws themselves have any moral weight or justification.
So it's like avoiding a speeding ticket because you don't want to pay the fine, not because you deeply believe the speed limit is morally correct at that exact spot.
Exactly. Obeying to avoid getting hurt or fined or jailed, that's totally different in his view from obeying because you feel a moral duty to. The motivation changes everything for him.
Okay, so morality comes from within, not the statute books.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the immediate question that pops up, and probably for you listening too, is doesn't that just lead to chaos? How can society function if everyone just decides they're above the law?
Right, that's the big but, isn't it? And he tackles it directly. He's very clear. Rejecting legal authority doesn't mean endorsing harm.
So he's not saying do whatever you want.
Not at all. He explicitly states he is 100% opposed to things like murder, assault, theft, fraud. But he argues that opposition comes from his moral beliefs, from what he knows is wrong, inherently.
Not because there's a law against it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
He sees actions like murder or theft as wrong, regardless of any law. So a law forbidding them, it's just redundant.
Unnecessary.
Yeah. And conversely, if a law somehow permitted murder, that wouldn't suddenly make it right for him. The morality exists independently of the legislation.
He has that analogy, right?
He does. Just as a law against murder does not make murder wrong, a law permitting murder would not make it right. It puts morality firmly outside the realm of legal creation.
And what about laws that mandate something he sees as wrong? Like conscription for a war he considers unjust.
Those, he says, are to be actively resisted, not obeyed. It directly challenges that whole idea that legal automatically means good or right.
So it seems like for Rose, laws fall into just two camps, really. They either echo morality, making them irrelevant, or they contradict morality, making them evil. Is that fair?
That sums it up pretty well. If the law aligns with basic universal morality, don't murder, don't steal, he sees it as redundant and irrelevant. It's just stating the obvious, morally speaking.
They don't add anything.
Right. But if the law conflicts with morality, maybe it legalizes something he sees as theft, like through taxation, or forces you to do something immoral, then that law is evil and, in his view, should be disobeyed.
Okay, you mentioned taxation there. He goes there, doesn't he? That's often a flashpoint.
Oh, absolutely. He draws a very provocative parallel between taxation and theft.
Yeah.
His argument is that calling it taxes doesn't change what he sees as the fundamental act, taking someone's property without their genuine consent.
So for him, the government label doesn't grant moral legitimacy.
Exactly. He's asking you, the listener, to look past the label,
Yeah.
to question the consent. If it's not truly voluntary, he categorizes it as taking property without permission, which, by his definition, is theft, regardless of who's doing the taking.
Wow. Okay. And this next part, this is where it feels like he really shifts focus. He stops just explaining his view and starts challenging us, challenging you, the listener.
Yes, this is where it gets personal. He explicitly challenges you to introspect. How do you feel about this idea of being above the law? What's your gut reaction versus your logical analysis?
And he doesn't just suggest it, he insists on it.
He insists. He argues that every single person is and absolutely should be above the law. Your own conscience, your sense of right and wrong should trump any piece of legislation.
And the alternative.
He calls the alternative literally insane,
Uh-huh.
which is strong language, I know.
Very.
But his point is, how can it be logical? How can it be sane to say you are obligated to do something you personally believe is immoral just because a law tells you to? For him, that's a fundamental contradiction.
It forces you to abandon your own moral judgment.
Precisely. And he points to history, doesn't he? Think about the just following orders defense.
Right, Nuremberg trials and countless other atrocities.
Exactly. He argues that defense only works if you accept external authority over your own conscience. If you accept you are ultimately responsible, that defense just crumbles. It really puts the weight of moral responsibility squarely on the individual, above any legal structure.
Well, it's a powerful idea, but it's also kind of daunting, isn't it? It puts the entire burden on you. How do you even know if it's your true conscience speaking and not just, I don't know, self-interest or a momentary feeling? He's really pushing us to define where our own morals come from.
He absolutely is. And that circle back to the taxation thing often makes it very real for people because that's where the conflict feels most direct for many.
Yeah, the immediate pushback is, but taxes pay for roads, schools, the greater good. That's the standard justification, isn't it? Practical necessity, maybe even a moral justification for the collective benefit.
It is the standard argument. And Rose confronts it directly. He essentially asks, is forced redistribution really more moral or even more effective than, say, voluntary charity or people funding things they actually believe in? He argues that forcing you to fund government actions you disagree with, maybe even find morally wrong, isn't ethical or efficient. It ties back to that core idea of control over your own resources, your own choices. For him, a supposedly good end doesn't justify what he sees as an immoral means taking money by source.
He really doesn't hold back with his language either. It's vivid, almost confrontational sometimes.
He definitely uses strong metaphors. They're designed to shake you up a bit, I think.
Like the robot and slave idea.
Exactly. He says if the law is truly placed above your conscience, you effectively cease to be a fully autonomous moral agent. You become like a robot, just executing commands, or a slave acting on orders rather than your own judgment.
Whereas putting conscience first.
That, he argues, is what keeps you fully human, fully morally responsible for your own actions. The stark language is meant to drive home the philosophical weight of that choice. Follow external rules or your internal compass.
So after going through all this, what's the main takeaway Rose wants you, listening right now, to consider?
I think it's that call for deep reflection. He keeps urging you to compare your gut reactions, your instinctive sense of right and wrong, with the logical justifications you might have been taught.
Questioning that automatic link between law-abiding and good.
Yes. He asserts that truly moral people will inevitably find themselves needing to break the law sometimes, precisely because the law is wrong. It's a direct challenge to how many of us view rules and our duty within society.
And he leaves us with a pretty pointed final challenge, doesn't he?
He does. He essentially asks, if you are not above the law, if your conscience isn't your ultimate guide, are you truly acting as a free and moral person?
And framing it as that final question for all of us to think about, can anyone really give a rational argument for why it's sane to ignore your own conscience just to blindly obey political authority? Or do you have to accept that, yeah, maybe each person should be and maybe already is above the law?
It's definitely something to chew on long after this conversation ends. Makes you really examine your own foundations.